Hello, and thanks again for joining us here on another edition of NCI Live. Joining me today is John Ryan, my partner in crime in the TSS division. We'll be talking today about the Microsoft 365 updates. How you doing, John?
Hey, pretty good, David. Thanks for having me on. Can't wait to talk about some of these things. We have a couple of months to catch up on, so some good stuff has come out, and get a chance to kind of share it with all of you folks in digital wonderland out there. So
Pleasure as always. So for those of you that are joining us for the first time, we are live on both YouTube and LinkedIn. Please feel free to chat us your questions, and we'll do our best to answer them live on the air, and we can have some feedback that way. So, at any rate, John, it's been a couple months, and of course, Microsoft being Microsoft, they give us a lot of updates in that period of time. What do you got for us?
yeah, so kind of weeding through some of this stuff that's in process. We see a lot of purview things happening right now, but that stuff hasn't settled yet. So we'll probably have a pretty extensive purview overview, especially with Copilot and everything coming out.
Yeah.
But let's start with Teams first, and we're going to kind of do it a little differently this time. We're just going to have more of a conversation between David and myself, as opposed to sharing slides and everything on social media. Sometimes it gets a little small in the window, so we'll just talk through it, and hopefully we can raise some awareness and let people know what's going on out there. So with Teams, one of the things that has come out in the last month or so is the ability to separate Teams out from the business's licenses. And what that means is, let's say you want to use the features of like, Business Basic or Business Standard, but you're not really ready to adopt Teams as a platform. So what you can do is you can choose to purchase it without Teams. Now, I guess David and I both know, the value of Teams, and we use it here at Network Center, as well as a lot of our customers use it. So, it's something I think if you're willing to adopt it and use it on an everyday basis, it becomes like part of your business, part of your office. But if you're not there yet and you just want to use it for some of the other features, especially like, downloadable versions of Office, and, you still want OneDrive with it, as well as like SharePoint and whatnot, you can choose to not do the Teams portion of it. So it kind of mimics a little bit of the older version before Teams was there.
Well, and to give you a little background, this came from the EU from a decision by, oh boy, I'm going to have to, I don't remember which court it gave the decision, but it has to do with monopoly. Somebody complained saying, hey, we do calling and we do, chat and some stuff like that. Well, but you're including it as part of your bundles, so you're kind of a monopoly in that regard. You're setting yourself up as a monopoly. So what they did in the EU and other places is they made it so that you could separate out Teams as a package. But here in the US, it was still included because that wasn't a decision that applied. So now you can separate out the license. And a couple of key differences there is if you are brand new, this is key, brand new 365 customer, and you're going to go full enterprise, like the E1, E3, E5 licenses, you have to buy E3 and add Teams. That is a have to now. You can't just buy E3 and get Teams as part of it. You actually have to get E3 plus Teams. They made it that way because of the size of generally enterprise licenses. And I will say for any 365 customers, that's nice. Now, if you are already E3, all of those are grandfathered in, nothing changes. You can continue to buy new licenses with Teams, not a problem. It's just if you're getting a brand new tenant, it's like you've never had 365 before, and let's be honest, today those are becoming fewer and rarer out there. So,
Right.
but I agree, this is a major deal.
Yeah, and so just to give you an idea of what the cost breakdown is between the two, because that's typically what a lot of organizations would do it for. They're currently using some kind of chat or calling function. Maybe it's WebEx or whatever you're using, Zoom or something like that, and you want to stick with that platform. Then you do get a discount off of the licensing. So it's a 10 to 20% discount depending upon what license you're looking at. But let's say like Business Basic with Teams is $6 per license. Without Teams, it's $4.75. So
But
buck
to add
25
it
is what you're
back
saying.
after the fact is more. You'll be paying more for the two together.
Right. If you put it as an add-on piece. Yep.
So that's
And
very important to think. If you're thinking about getting it without, make sure you note that, hey, it's only going to be, you're only getting a 10 to 20% discount.
yeah, and typically we see that with a lot of the licensing. So like if you're going to start with basic and you're eventually going to add all the things that brings you up to premium, you might as well just go with premium because it becomes cheaper at that point. And that's why they bundle it together like that.
Right.
So,
Yep,
but
absolutely.
it's not an all or none, so you can actually add licenses selectively throughout your organization. So you can enable it for some people and not enable it for other people as well. But in a lot of those cases, we probably would push those users down to like an F series license. And the F series license still includes Teams, but does allow you to kind of, get a cheaper license with a lot of the same features.
Absolutely. Nope, agreed. And we get this a lot, but Microsoft licensing is an animal unto itself, and that's why we're here. We we consider ourselves to be licensing experts, and we will help guide you uh, through these licensing perilous waters, if you will.
Yeah, and
So
we're on meetings with, we're Microsoft Gold partner, so we're on meetings with Microsoft, and we actually get to give feedback and everything too. So if you have any, recommendations or anything that you want us to represent for you, we can also do that as well in those meetings. So,
absolutely, absolutely.
so
Okay.
sticking with Teams here, a couple of feature additions. One is the quick attach addition. So if you're in a chat or a team channel, you can actually hit the little plus down there and hit attachment. So it's the little paperclip attachment. And it'll actually, based on the discussions, either with the person that you're with or with the content in the chat, it'll recommend attachments for you to add to it. So it kind of automatically knows based on your history of attachments. If it's a new person and there's not a lot of sources for it to pull from, it'll just show like your most recent attachments. But it's not quite AI, but it does give you
It's
some
predictive.
recommendations. Yeah, it's predictive.
Yeah.
So it'll show something that you may have worked on with that person, and you can just quickly attach it there. So that's kind of a cool feature.
Well, and in our position, one of the things we do the most common is type up a Word document, turn it into a PDF, and then turn around and attach it to an email or a Teams file. And if we're doing any of that kind of stuff, and it works in Excel too, you do that, you save it, you go to Teams, and you're going to hit attach. When you hit attach, it just pops up there as one of the last things you worked on. And it's really simple. You don't have to go browsing for it and looking for it, because that takes time. And for those people that are not as familiar with file systems and whatnot, it is really a time saver.
Yeah,
So
in
I like
fact,
that feature.
that window that pops up is actually prior to the browse window.
Yes,
So
correct. Yep.
it is a little quick attach window. And then if you choose to browse, you would have to hit browse at that point and it would browse. So it kind of intercepts just attach the browse attachment window. So pretty cool.
Absolutely.
This next feature is something that is actually added with AI technology, and it's called voice isolation, noise suppression. And it's different than just background noise suppression. And what noise suppression is typically if you have a lot of things going on around you, it kind of like hones in on your voice and picks up your voice, the clearest out of all of the different ones. So um, what it does now is it actually recognizes noise versus voice speech. So probably the easiest way to just to show you this is David can do a little bit of a demo here with the microphone that he has in front of him.
Yeah.
And David, if you want to just make some noise for us
Yeah.
to not hear, I guess.
So yeah. So normally, like if you're in a windy situation, like if I blow into this microphone, we're using Teams right now with the voice isolation suppression. So if I blow in, a little light will turn on and it says noise suppressed. so you know that if you're talking and you wanted to make a sound or something, and people wouldn't hear that sound. Now you can turn that off. So if you're trying to demonstrate some sound or some feature of something, um, you do have the ability to turn that off. But
Yeah, and and the fear is if you're a quiet speaker or something, is this thing going to just cut out and everything? But through the AI technology, it's actually intelligent enough to know words versus noise. So if you're speaking words, it'll let that through, right? So
yeah, very cool. Yeah.
okay, so moving on, let's go on to Defender. And the phishing emails through Defender. So Defender has the ability to send out phishing emails to end users. These are the kind of the fake emails to see if people click on things, which we kind of all know that that's one of the biggest security risks is your end users clicking on things that they shouldn't be clicking on. But if they do get an email that looks like a phishing email, they can actually hit a submission button to send that to an admin saying, hey, this looks dodgy, or this looks like an email I shouldn't be clicking on. And up until now, the administrator would get that, and that's all the further it would go. So even if the administrator marked it as a phishing email, nothing would go back to the end user. So you wouldn't know the emails that you're submitting, whether they're actually phishing or not. So now, through this automated investigation and response, the administrator can actually accept that as a reasonable phishing attack, and you'll get a response that says, yes, thank you for submitting this. This did actually turn out to be a phishing email. So if you see any others like this, please continue to, forward that information on. So before it was just kind of went into Never Never Land and you didn't know whether or not it was actually a phishing email or not. So, and I think that's where Defender and some of these other services from Microsoft integrating AI and integrating more and more kind of automatic features can help make them more secure.
A lot of the cloud-based security services, and we're seeing a lot of those software, the prem-based security softwares are, I'm going to say it, from a trending and speed perspective, the cloud-based ones are being innovated quicker because they have the ability to do scale, right? When you roll out a feature, it rolls out to everybody immediately. You don't have to wait for an IT department to install it, configure it, and roll it out to their users. It's You've already got it installed and configured. They just flip a switch and it's on. That new feature is on, or that new ability to do something. So in this case, if you're a Defender implemented, you now have this new feature. Now, whether it's configured or has the in-depth configuration, that's arguably something that needs to be done. But usually the default settings are designed to get you most of the way there. And
Yeah,
and I'm not just talking Defender either. I'm talking any other cloud-based security service.
right. And as far as Defender goes, a lot of those services that do the collection in the background and look at your cloud environment, a lot of that stuff is just happening in the background. Even if you're not logging into Defender, or if you haven't logged into it for the first time, a lot of that stuff is there. So if you do go and get it set up, it'll actually kind of backtrack a little bit of your environment and say, hey, we've noticed, I know this is your first time logging in, but we've noticed all of this stuff that you guys have been doing needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like on whether you want it or not. It's just whether you're using it or not. And a lot of times, if it's included in your license, it's just a matter of getting it set up and using it. So
Absolutely. And it's there and it's got the defaults enabled already. So you're using it whether you know it or not. And we've seen that a lot with people that have, say, when they have 365, there are some basic security features that are just enabled and they're part of Defender, like Defender for Business, or just the basic like email filtering for Exchange. That's a Defender product. It's the basic settings are turned on. There's no you've got configuration. You can go further, but it's the basics are turned on. Since we're talking about Defender, we were going to talk about this later on, but let's skip ahead and talk about Defender for, Copilot for Defender.
Yeah, so what it does now, so obviously Copilot is on everybody's mind now with the release of it earlier this year, and it being basically general availability for majority of the year. They did actually release a thing called Copilot for Security on April 1st. And what that does is it actually applies AI technologies to your security environment
Yep.
through like Defender and those type of security settings for your organization. And what it'll do is it will actually learn the basically the mannerisms of your users and help make settings to or adjust or even suggest settings to make you more secure. So it learns like what you most commonly use, what kind of data you're sending out, what type of attacks that might be susceptible to, and then it proactively helps make those adjustments for you.
Now, the demos I've seen of this product makes investigations a lot nicer because within now Defender, and one of the things I've heard a lot about with Defender is that the if you have a enterprise and you're using the full Defender suite, investigating a threat, you've got a lot of powerful tools at your disposal, but unfortunately, you can't see the forest for the trees sometimes. And in that regard, and navigating and finding a particular source of a threat or a source of an event can get troubling. And Copilot being a natural language interface, you can say, show me the threats that happened in the last week, or not threats, show me the events that happened in the last week. Where did this event originate? And ask the questions of your security system versus having to go in and click, 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 click to find a particular source. So being able to naturally ask those questions is it's very powerful. Not just kind of powerful, it's very powerful. So
Yeah, and they've expanded some of those security AI controls into Microsoft Edge too. So not only is it protecting you in the 365 environment, but it's actually watching kind of over what you're doing through Edge, because there are a lot of users that use Edge to do Copilot functionality.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
Very
another
cool.
thing, sticking with Copilot here, since we've already cracked that can open, you can actually do, so I think one of the things that people talk about is how do we make our own data secure, right? If we're giving end users access to using Copilot within 365 and our data lives in 365, how do we secure that data so that somebody doesn't accidentally share something or whatever?
Right.
And for the most part, it's based on user permissions. But they do have a thing that you can do called fencing data sets in Graph. And basically what that allows you to do is turn off certain portions of data. And now it's for everybody. It's not just per user, it's for everybody. But you can fence some of the data saying, hey, even though Copilot is great and everything, I just don't want people using this, even on a manager level, to potentially make presentations. It's sensitive data. It should never be
Super
used
sensitive.
through an automatic tool like Copilot.
Mm-hmm.
There's a certain amount of risk when you're putting the presentation abilities in people's hands. So if you enable everybody to do it, you don't know who's doing what, right?
Right.
But if you fence that data that you know that you don't want people to touch, they just can't use that, and it kind of puts you at ease, and it doesn't allow your data to get out that's not intended to get out. So
Yeah. So you just literally are putting up a complete wall in front of the data that
right.
um, you don't want to get. And financial or HR data is a great example. But as you said, it's absolute. It's you put that wall in front. Even HR people couldn't use that for their Copilot queries.
Right. And I think there's a good reason to denote the difference between having access to data and then, to do your regular everyday job. Like I
Right.
enter stuff into GP or Dynamics or something like that. So I have data, or I have access to that data. You can still do that if this is fenced. It's just Copilot can't see it. So you can still see it to do your normal daily job. You're not turning that part off. You're just turning it off the Copilot piece of it. So
Gotcha. Very cool. I want to take a break real quick here and just remind everybody that we are live. So if you have questions and you want to ask them or get our opinion on something, by all means, we are live on both LinkedIn and YouTube. So please feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll answer them. Let's continue on.
So more Copilot.
Yeah.
Copilot now does interact directly with Outlook. So you're able to actually use Outlook directly without opening up any other additional Word or Excel or any of that kind of stuff. It's available directly through Outlook, which is actually a newer thing. They have Copilot for Intune. So again, kind of like this back into kind of the security piece of it, and not knowing exactly how to use Intune as a tool. Now you have kind of somebody riding shotgun with you to help you make some of those decisions of those settings. Intune can be as granular as you want it to be or as broad as you want it to be. And Copilot, you can ask it to, I want to turn off USB ports so people can't, put in a USB stick and
Right.
copy data off
Right.
of it. Please make that setting for me, or how do I make that setting? And it'll help you.
Yep.
So some of that stuff where you know what you want to accomplish, but you don't necessarily know how to get there. That's what all of this Copilot stuff is. So
I have to interject and say that I've been using Copilot daily, and and we were just talking about before the show started, and it has really added a lot to my daily work life, especially for meetings. I can't say enough. Like I'll have like just this morning we had a meeting. I had to drop off and come back in, and my computer did updates and a bunch of other stuff, And I came back in and I asked Copilot. I said, "What did I miss?" And it told me who said what while I was gone, and it literally summarized. So and so said this, and so said that. And we talked about this. We talked about that. And I could ask even more detailed questions. Could you give me what did they say exactly? Um, so if you're looking for a proponent of Copilot, I definitely can speak highly of it.
yeah, or give me a list of tasks that were agreed upon, to complete within the meeting, and it'll
Yep.
actually give you a bulleted list of tasks that were talked about and discussed. And I think that's where it becomes more of okay, I was listening, and these
Mhm.
are the notes that I took, and
Yep.
this is what I think is important, right? And
Summarizing.
and
Yep.
summarizing, yeah, and not only just giving you a transcript of it, but actually like knowing what that means. That's the AI piece of it. That's how it understands what you're asking for.
And it
Otherwise,
gives
if
you
it,
the
if you
actual
just said,
language.
yeah, otherwise if you just said, you know, summarize this, meeting, it would just give you like a list of highlights, right? But if you're asking it to do something specific, where it has to think based on a
The
set of information,
Yeah. The one thing that's been really impressive too is for me when I also we both do create a lot of documents, and being able to tell Copilot, hey, make this document with about this topic based on this other document. And so when you have like a lot of documents that you create that are the same, it will actually do that. It'll take it even formatted it, made it the same, font sizes and font types and everything else. The only difference was the new material we were talking about. And to me, that was kind of incredible. Saved me a lot of time. Now I could have taken the original, then file save as, and taken and edited out and written the stuff. But I actually was able to do all of that using Copilot, and it took 30 seconds versus the 10 minutes. So I'm actually getting, I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, but you do that 5 times during a day, you're gaining back an hour.
Right.
Or 6 times. Sorry, 6 times.
Well, not to mention the formatting within Teams, where if you just do a copy paste out of Teams, a lot of times the formatting's, kind of all messed up. And to actually get it to accept the formatting by just telling it to utilize this document, it's pretty cool because it'll actually take and put, it'll keep the document pretty much the same, and it'll add the content into it, to make it the new document. So, and that's, I think, what a lot of people will probably start using Copilot for, is just content creation, right?
Very much so.
Yeah. How do I do this? How do I put together this document? How do I make this graph? I don't know how to make a graph because I, don't do a lot of graphs. So Copilot, take the information that I have in these, squares or these fields in Excel and make a graph out of it showing blah, and it'll just do it, right? So you don't have to become an expert. You can kind of utilize that to help.
I can say, that my greatest, and I know we've got some other things to talk about Copilot, but I will say that the greatest use I've gotten is in 3 programs from Microsoft: Teams, Excel, and Word. That combination, being able to, and cross, right? Saying, what does my calendar look like for the next week? What would be the next available time? I have an hour. Rather than going in and looking, I could just ask Copilot. And can you write me an email summarizing this document? And then I don't do a lot of PowerPoint anymore. Matter of fact, I'm the one that gets a lot of, people give me a hard time for making PowerPoints. But being able to take a document and make a PowerPoint out of it has been pretty awesome. But all right.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway.
Well, and along those lines too, another update is Copilot is available in MS Forms now. So I think for the longest time, everybody has thought MS Forms is pretty cool, but you do have to know what you're doing in there in order to make, impactful forms, things that are relevant. And now you can just basically tell it to make you a form.
Make me a form to gather information about this.
Yeah. And it just does it for you, right? So and you can tweak it and whatever you need to do, after that. You can say, okay, use the same form, but instead change these fields to these fields, and it'll just do it for you. Now, some of that stuff you might know how to do, so you might be able to tweak it a little bit. But the other thing on the Copilot front, and we're getting close to wrapping up here, but they have extended Copilot licensing for the lower end licenses. For a while there, it was just business standard and up. Now they actually have it for the F1, the F3, Microsoft Basic, and the original Office 365 licenses. So you can pretty much apply it to any license that you have. But you do have to be a licensed user. So that's one of the things I think a lot of people don't understand with 365 is you can't just sign up for Copilot. You actually have to have a licensed user. You have to be somebody, right, in the tenant. So
you have to have apps and so on to be able to use it with Copilot.
Right. And it's still a 1-year commit, and it's $30 a month for 1 year. Which, if you have documents that we've gotten from Microsoft that talk about return on investment and time gained back from it from a basic user, and it pretty much pays for itself pretty quickly. So,
I mean, and I gave my own personal experience, and I mean, you can take it for what it's worth, but I do see real improvements in what I do and how quickly I can do something. And if you start actually getting used to it, and the 2 keys to Copilot that I have found are having your data available in the cloud in 365, and how you write your prompts, like being able to
how you request,
your request, asking your request in like really talking to it as opposed to making it in computer language, how you think a computer might speak. So just talk in a natural language, say, give me a proposal on this based on this document, and it'll do just that. But if you say, need proposal document that, like abbreviate it, it'll actually not be as accurate.
Right.
So, all right.
Okay. Well, that's all I got for today.
Perfect.
We have plenty more on the horizon, and like you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of updates that happen daily for a lot of these tools. It's just another one of the advantages that you get from having the subscription is that a lot of the tools just get updated, in flight, and now you have that feature. So we try to keep you up to date on those features and even some of the newer ones that you might have to pay for. But for the most part, a lot of this stuff that comes out is kind of just bolted on to what you're currently using. So.
Really. And with that, we've come to the end of another edition of NCI Live. I appreciate everyone who's come to join us. John, thanks so much for filling us in and participating today. Those of you, if you didn't get your question answered today, please feel free to visit our website at www.netcenter.net. You can email us at info@netcenter.net, or you can look for us on any of our social media channels, or come back and visit us here on NCI Live when we do go live, which is approximately every 2 weeks. We're going to have some interesting shows upcoming this year, and I'm excited for the next couple. So that said, John, it's a pleasure as always. I look forward to the next couple that we're going to be doing together. So um, thanks again for coming.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
All right. And thanks everyone for joining us today on NCI Live. Bye-bye.